Good afternoon, everybody. I want to welcome to the CEO Talk. This is our fourth successful talk over the year. If anybody's just muted, they can mute. And this was put on by I Made It and Focus Learning. As with the past CEOs, we've enjoyed all the benefits of their knowledge, wisdom, and experience to gain a forward-looking vision on where we should all be looking and potential careers and educations to get us there. So the series is designed to broaden the minds of our students, the parents, and actually the investors into understanding the breadth of opportunity that exists in the world around us and using this newly gained knowledge to create a better community for ourselves and, of course, the young students who are our future. So without a lot of time to get into everything that we do in this class, because it's enormous, I want to just introduce Mr. Burton, Jolyon Burton. I'm going to share a screen here so that, and I'll put Mr. Burton's screen up first and have it here, and then we'll be talking. So Mr. Burton is co-founder of Bloom Burton. They've raised well over $3 billion, and I think probably more after this year, of money in the biotech industry. They've also been instrumental in entrepreneurial biotech firms in Canada getting to a stage that is important for all of us in the community so that they can provide drugs and all types of other things like Newtopia products to the community that help us in our health. So without firms like Bloom Burton and Jolyon Burton, Canada would be certainly set back in the medical field, and we just can't say enough about what they've done in their past. So, and then after Mr. Burton has spoken a little bit about the biotech industry, and he has a short window, 5 to 10 minutes, which he can probably talk for hours on. We'll introduce, I'll let Mr. Burton introduce Jeff Ruby from Newtopia. I will be the moderator for this, so if there's any questions, people can just make the questions on the side. For people that are guests, they won't be able to type in questions, but they'll be able to speak. For people that are not guests, such as the students, they can speak or ask questions. And Jeff, we do have quite a few interesting questions that the students are going to ask you. And they're not questions that you certainly won't be prepared, but it's open table.
I'm done with your stress, okay?
And I guess, yeah, for everybody out there, if you can just mute, that's great. I think we've got that on there. So again, we got 60 minutes left, guys. Everybody enjoy and sit back and collect as much information as you can from Mr. Burton and Mr. Ruby. Okay, Jolyon, I'll let you take over the table.
Thank you very much, James. It's a real treat and a pleasure to speak with all of you today. This is really fun for us because we are deeply connected and partnered with James and Shelley and have known them a long time, and we find great ideas and help entrepreneurs like Jeff achieve their vision. And what's fun about being an investment banker is you get to go scour the world for great ideas and then take those opportunities and try and find a way to get investors to participate in ways that are mutually beneficial to the company's vision. So the first thing I get to say is being an investment banker is really fun, even though it's incredibly hard and the hours are crazy, but it's really fun because we get to spend our time with access to CEOs and entrepreneurs. And part of this wonderful course and theme about meeting entrepreneurs is they provide you with energy. You know, you either really love them and know instantly, or you know that there's not going to be a fit, and you know that pretty quickly too. I'll say just a very few words on Bloom Burton and Co., only because maybe for some of you on the line, learning that investment banking is a real career path with no specific predicated guidelines is very interesting. To be an investment banker, to be an investor, to be someone who participates in funding these companies, you just have to be really engaged with the world, have a very strong mind and intellectual curiosity, and a passion for it. In the original world of investment banking, the exclusive world, the one that has more light on it today, but the Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanleys, all of these firms are 150 or so years old, and they used to organize themselves by region. It didn't matter what sector a company was in, it was a region. So if you were somewhere, you represented all the companies, because the idea of investment banking was not specialized about the sector, it was specialized in knowing how to transact, to do mergers and acquisitions, to do debt financings, to do convertible debentures, to do preferred shares. The specialization was investment banking itself. Today, all the companies around the world are organized by sector teams. Sector teams means that every investment bank that's a large platform or a global bank, from the huge Asian banks to the huge US banks or the European banks, they're all organized no longer by regional teams, but by sector teams. And you will see them called things like TMT, telecom, media, and technology, or now CMT because of social media, communications, media, and technology. Or you'll find the world of healthcare. And the world of healthcare is where the entire Bloom Burton & Co. ecosystem fits. We do nothing but healthcare, only healthcare all day long, every day, and we're specialized deeply in healthcare, and investment banking is how we execute. So the people at the Bloom Burton team include many PhDs, JDs, we have medical doctors, we have advisors, masters of science, but we also have people like me. And I'm an economist by background, a University of Waterloo graduate, and I did co-op placements at places like the Department of Foreign Affairs or at Statistics Canada, learning about all kinds of industries. But healthcare is where we focus, and we only do that. So if you think about most investment banks that you read about, the big headline ones, they're generally organized by sector team with global offices, but the teams are one team around the world. And if they have a healthcare team, they will be as big as our whole firm on their healthcare team or smaller. Our team is generally larger than most healthcare teams. And what's interesting is we have the low-hanging fruit, so to speak, of Canada. Our whole backyard of Canada is a natural place for us to meet companies and talk to them and learn about what they do. And we do everything from private company financing to public financing to IPOs to M&A to debt financings, you name it. And we have an investment arm. We have a consulting arm, and we have the actual overall, I guess, traditional investment banking services. And now I'm going to make the switch to introducing the star of our show, and he is a star, not that he'll say so because he's humble, and that's actually why he's the star of the show. So the humble side of him is actually why, in my opinion, he's a star, and it's that he displays all the characteristics of entrepreneurship that we want, which is vision and innovation and attacking a market in a way that no one thought about, but having the grit and the ability to withstand a market not shifting in the same time as his idea. The ones who make a breakthrough are the ones who actually have to persist and find their way through. Newtopia for Bloom Burton was an amazing company because the whole thesis is about outcomes. This is about prevention, and Jet's going to talk to you about it, so I'm not going to really say a lot about the company, but there's an element in here that's really innovative. Healthcare, the headlines you've heard about for 4, for 10, for 15 years is healthcare costs are enormous and growing. And Jeff's approach at Newtopia is to smash the cost curve while providing better value, not the same value or close enough, or you squeak by, but better value while smashing the cost curve. For us, that blew our minds at Bloom Burton, and we've known Jeff a long time. And as a result of that, we actually invested in the company in multiple rounds and became the investment banker. And we were thankful that Jeff trusted us to let us help him down that path, helped him get public, and has helped them raise through their company just recently. And James and his team helped support us very much in that in the open market on a $7.5 million bought deal financing that was led by institutions. And we have US investors now coming into the company who are beginning to recognize Newtopia as something very powerful. The Bloom Burton mantra is to try and discover the best ideas before everyone else. The markets are not efficient. Our ability to make excess return is if we find the right idea early and it's right, then you'll make excess return because the others, by adopting your thesis, will buy the stock that's very hard to find and make the share price go higher. And that's what we've done with Jeff so far. But because Jeff has found a way to really persist and break through. So I'm going to make a very warm handoff to someone we respect deeply. We know the person, the individual, the integrity, but we love the vision for Newtopia and how it's transforming the healthcare system. It's only tiny with respect to the multi-trillion-dollar market so far, but the actual underneath the surface elements I would describe is like tectonic plates beginning to shift, which are going to hit each other and cause earthquakes that are very powerful. So we are very grateful to have partnered with James and his team and Shelley on finding and working and supporting Newtopia. We are a greater than 10% owner of the company in shares that we've purchased. And we think it's really something special. And we're here for the long term because what Jeff is just starting is very powerful. So with that, James, I'll turn it back to you to turn it over to Jeff. But we are thrilled to be sponsoring and supporting the Newtopia vision.
Thank you, Jolyon. That was exactly what, there is a lot of students here that are interested in investment banking and the financial market as well. And they have, even though I can tell them, it's great. It's like being the parent of a kid. They don't listen as much to me as they listen to the people outside there. So it's great that you can actually bring that up because that changes people's minds about what the business is all about. And we are taping this, so for everybody that's on this, we do vet this again through Jolyon Burton and Jeff Ruby and ourselves through legals before we release it. But these are the kind of things that are spoken about that you guys can go back and listen to and really take a lot from it. So thank you, Mr. Burton. It's a pleasure doing great business with you as always. And just for everybody that knows on this channel, I learned so much from Jolyon and Brian Bloom on the overall medical world. It's never ending. And me being in the investment banking side too, again, I can add that what's great about this job is you see such a diverse amount of stuff, whether it's metallurgy, mining, medical, that it keeps you going all the time. And even when we speak in our classroom, Mr. Elon Musk, he doesn't design the rocket boosters that take rockets up and satellites up, but he hires the people that get the job done as long as he's got that vision. So for all the students and people out there that think they need to be an engineer for rocket booster to be someone, you don't. You can actually go and find the people, surround yourself with great people like Jolyon just said, and you can build beautiful things from there. So Mr. Ruby, I'm going to let you take over. I've got your screen up here. I know we have to show forward-looking information when you speak, and it's there. And then I will let you direct me wherever you need to take me inside this chart, and let me go, or take it away. We usually, as you've seen, we like you to discuss the company and everything about it, and then afterwards you get into how you got here, your education, and the kids, or all the students can understand from that point.
Yeah. So, James, I'm actually happy not to use any slides. So if maybe I could just be the one speaking, that would be great, because I think it's probably going to be more informative that way. And first, so welcome everyone, and thank you so much, James and Shelley, for having me. Jolyon, thank you for that incredibly warm and generous introduction. You do know that makes me incredibly uncomfortable to be spotlighted that way, which is why you just did it. Again, I count Jolyon and Brian and Jolyon Burton not only as partners long-term, but as friends and people I trust. And James, who's recently become an investor in Newtopia, really respect and thank you for your support. So again, maybe just to start the way James wanted to, I'm Jeff Ruby, the founder and CEO of Newtopia. Just to start and recognizing there are students here, which is really exciting for me to have the opportunity, because normally this can get pretty technical. I just want to explain what Newtopia is, because we're really a new kind of company, and I best describe us as a health technology company focused on disease prevention. You're really looking to improve and change people's habits, and so our job is to prevent, reverse, and slow the progression of chronic disease which is generally measured through changes in people's biology. We're looking to actually change and be held accountable to improve people's health risks. But also in doing so, we want to enhance and improve individuals' mental health, their resilience and ability to manage stress, and ultimately improve their overall performance. Really our job is to just create the best person of an individual and the best version of an individual that we can. Our focus is on populations who are pre-chronic or at risk for chronic disease. And the ones that we're focused on include risks for obesity, risk for diabetes, risk for heart disease, risk for stroke. Sadly, that accounts for about 50 to 60% of the North American population, and increasingly the global population is growing in risk. And what we do is really get to know individuals at risk well through a combination of genetic information, behavioral information, and social information. And effectively, what we're really trying to do is become a student of those individuals at risk. So we can take that information and design experiences, all delivered online, that blends the best of people and the best of technology, all to help change their habits, which will not only improve those risks and prevent those conditions, but help their mental health, their resilience, and their performance. And so we're trying to really turn the tide on chronic disease in a significant way. And we do that in partnership with groups that are risk-bearing. So what are risk-bearing groups? These are insurance companies or people who are responsible for the health of those individuals. Depending around the world who insures, that can be an employer who owns the risk for all of their employees. It could be a normal insurance company, either privately owned or in many cases a government insurance company, whether in Canada it's the provinces or around the world that could be national. But effectively, we partner with those insurers. And what we've been able to demonstrate through this habit change platform we've built is not only the ability to keep their members or employers healthier, which has a significant impact on them, but we can significantly reduce their costs. And as Jolyon said, smash the cost of healthcare, which is only going up. But most importantly, we do that with proven economics. And so we can prove inside of a year that we can not only improve those risks, but have a positive payback for the insurance company inside of 12 months. But most importantly of all, deliver outcomes that grow over time. So both the clinical outcomes and the financial outcomes improve. So everybody is winning. The person at risk is winning because they're getting better over time, not worse. The economic outcome means that the insurers are getting better financially, not worse. And because of Newtopia's really novel business model, it means that as they win, we win even more over time. And so it really truly is a win-win-win business model. Just before I pause, we're an innovator. We're really a first of its kind. There's no one in the world doing what we're doing. But those that have really been attracted to what we do are also the innovators and early adopters. And so our customers today are really focused on the US, but they're big innovation companies. Financial institutions like JP Morgan Chase, the largest financial institution in the world, CVS Health, one of the largest health and retailers in the world, Accenture, one of the largest consulting companies in the world, they are currently using Newtopia's platform to help address their own at-risk populations. And we see a huge opportunity that as we help the innovators and they raise their hands and tell the world what we're doing, that we provide an even bigger opportunity to expand to all employers, all insurers, public, private, and really motivates all of that. And underlying all of that is this belief of mine that what we call healthcare today really doesn't have a lot to keeping healthy people healthy. And if you think about that for a second, what healthcare is today has much more to do with taking care of people who are sick, but it also, all the financial incentives are pretty much aligned to getting paid for people who are sick. And I'm just a big believer that where financial incentives are, where people get paid, that's where all the energy goes. And today we're seeing most of the energy going toward taking care of illness and almost a system that counts on us all getting sick, because that's how most of the people in healthcare get paid. And I think that's backward. So what Newtopia is doing is trying to reverse that trend. It's trying to make healthcare about keeping healthy people healthy as a first priority. And we believe that the insurers of the world have a big financial interest and stake in being partnering with us to achieve that. And so that's a long-winded way of just explaining what we're doing in building and growing at Newtopia.
Here we go. Yeah, I mean, we've studied it, Newtopia in the classroom, and it's great to hear, because the slide deck doesn't do the justice about what you actually physically say that the company is out there. So I think what's great now is that the students will be able to go back and reflect on this video and see the things that I haven't been able to dish out on the company, because I'm not the CEO with the vision, and then we'll be able to have further discussions on this going forward. So one of the things, I guess, that I can moderate in here before we get into some of the many questions, and some of them are actually pretty good. We're going to put you on the spot a bit, Jeff, but and these students have ranged from grade 7 all the way to grade 12, and you know, I didn't make up these questions for them. They've come up with them themselves based on the couple of years of being in the course. So you know, they're quite impressed now at thinking outside the box. But if you can maybe get into a little bit about how you got here and your education and you know, I know one of the kids' questions is this, but how you generated these ideas to get you to this space now.
Yeah, and I think it's really powerful, because everything I just said and described, I didn't learn in school. And I'm not anti-school. I spent a long time going to school. But when I was in high school and sort of in grade 7 through 9, as many of you are, I had this sense and almost sense of duty to follow what a lot of my family members were doing, which were professionals. I had a lot of lawyers in my family. And so I had this sense that I was going to go into that world. And so I didn't have an entrepreneurial sense that early. And in fact, past high school and even in my undergrad, I still had that sense of what to do. I did a Bachelor of Arts, and then I pursued a joint JD MBA combined. And it was really there that I started to see the world of law and the world of business coming together. And I chose to pursue the legal side in articles to become, write the bar and become a lawyer. And what I did recognize was that it didn't feel right to me. Practicing law, it just didn't feel like the right fit. There's nothing wrong with the profession. It just didn't seem to suit me very well. And it was really some interesting timing that led me to where I am now, because as I was finishing that legal training and some awareness, I had a bit of a history at summer camping and at the outdoors, and had a real sense of just what sort of being healthy was about. But it was actually my father who got ill very young, at the age of 54, with abdominal cancer. His experience really opened my eyes up for the first time to what I now call our sick care system. Prior to his illness, I just had really no reason to look at it. I was very fortunate that I and my family members were healthy. And it was really through my dad's experience that I came to this realization that what we call healthcare really isn't about keeping healthy people healthy. In my dad's case, once he got sick, this magnificent system emerged to help manage and deal with and provide surgery and all kinds of therapy. But I was struck by there was nothing there and before. It was all left up to him. And it's generally all left up to us to figure this out. And that's where I think it's a little bit bizarre and a little bit backward. And it was really through seeing him ill and unfortunately passing away a few years later at the age of 57, quite young, that's where this passion came for, this seems backward. And I just happened to have the audacity to ask the question, well, why not me fix it? And I've been pursuing that now for over 20 years across 4 different companies that I've started, all tangentially tied to this notion of how do we make healthcare more about keeping healthy people healthy. So just a little bit of a history and a little bit of a sense of how I got here and really what the turning point was. But James, I heard your comments earlier. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not a health professional. In fact, I have probably the least amount of technical knowledge about this area than most of the folks on my team. But what I do is surround myself with the very best thinkers. And what I do is what I force is a sense of leveling the playing field and a sense of this vision of forget what you've learned at school, forget your discipline only, let's become interdisciplinary. And in doing so, how do we drive new thinking and innovation forward? And so I'm probably just the best stone thrower and catalyst in the room, not the subject matter expert in any of these fields.
Well, it's interesting, Jeff. Yeah, I'm off mute there. Is one of the reasons I designed this program 2 years ago. I guess it's almost 2.5 years ago, and Shelley and I have been building it up. It's not easy when it's just two of us, but it's getting bigger and bigger now. Is that exactly what we're talking about here? Is that a lot of these students from grade 7 all the way through to, I've even got students that have come to me that are doing their second MBA and they're 28 now, and they still don't know what they're going to do, and they've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and time value. And they've missed out on not having a diversified enough scope of what's going on out there. And so what we're trying to do in this course is to bring people like yourself and metallurgists from the mining industry and to really allow these students to go, geez, you know what? I was pigeonholed down this one area, but now I see that there's 70 to 100 different other areas that I could go into that, boy, I actually didn't mind looking at rocks. And now I actually enjoy that more than becoming a lawyer. And I didn't get this either when I went through school. And so what we're trying to do here now is build a platform that the students can come back to 10 years later, even if they're 28 now and they're at a workplace that they've got a new idea, and they bring it to the CEO, and the CEO says, what are you doing? Go back to your desk. We got other things to do. They can come to this channel now and be able to say, here's an idea, and they can be linked up with a Mr. Burton or myself or you, and you can say, geez, you know what, Richard, that's a great idea. Go and see this person. So that's kind of the form that we're building here. And so far, it seems to be getting bigger and bigger. We have a lot of people involved with it from corporations onwards now. And it's great for the students because it alleviates a lot of the fears that they have about, geez, I have no idea what I'm doing. And, it's amazing. My daughter, even though she's doing well in grade 12, she has no idea. She wants to go to school for medical, but there's 1,000 different places she should go, and she won't find that out until she's there. So people like Mr. Burton are helping her open her eyes and say, hey, here's 10 areas you could look at. And we hope that's the kids are going to be coming back, whether they're not taking the class or not, they're going to be signed into this forum in this community going forward. So you've just nailed it for us on that one. So I think we don't have that much time left, and we do respect the amount of here. And I think I've already got one question coming in here right now from somebody. So we do respect your time and Mr. Burton's time. It is Saturday afternoon. I think we have over 90 people on the call, so at least signed in, and probably a lot more with it. So I'll fire. I know I've got one gentleman out there, Mr. Inder Banyani, who's going to ask a question. But let's get some of the students to step up here and ask some questions. So does anybody want to fire a question to Mr. Ruby right now? If not, I can read out the questions, because sometimes they get a little bit worried. Go ahead. I've got, who is that? Grace. Grace, you fire a question, Grace.
Hi. So as a CEO, which major do you think will be helpful for your career?
Sorry, Grace, I didn't hear all of that question. Would you mind repeating that, James?
Okay, sure. As a CEO, which major do you think will be helpful for your career?
Oh, yeah. I see.
What major do you think is helpful for your career? Yeah.
Grace, I really couldn't tell you that as a CEO. And I'm probably not. I'm much more interested in meeting passionate, fascinated people in what they love to do than I would ever want to steer you towards something that I may be interested in and what I wanted to do. And I think that spending the time where you are now, I think the courses that you're doing are probably very interesting, and the homework that you're doing and the curriculum that you're working on in whatever system of schooling you're in. But I think the best thing, if I could offer a little bit of advice, is try to spend the time really looking inside as what makes you interested, what makes you curious, and where is it that you'd want to dig more into. And that would be the area I would recommend most focusing on in further studies or further work, because it's that curiosity, and it's going to be that following that instinct and that hunch that's probably going to lead you to something the most fulfilling and where you're going to do your best work, as opposed to necessarily following what someone else says you should do.
Oh, great.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Grace. Okay, guys, fire away. Any other questions? Guys, as with our classroom, we go bang, bang, so you got to ask quick or I'm going to step in. So, okay, Jordan, go ahead.
So how do you actually plan to make sick care into health care?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a pretty hairy and audacious goal, but that's okay. And I think where it starts is by starting to turn the focus away from only really taking care of people once they're diagnosed with an illness. And so, what we're trying to do is just move a little further to the left. And by starting to focus on that population who aren't quite healthy, but they're not necessarily sick, but this group at risk, we've recognized that there's an interest among them to do something about it, and there's an interest amongst the employers or insurers who are responsible for them to do something about it. And so I think by focusing on that audience, it doesn't mean, by the way, that there isn't brilliant work being done in what I tongue-in-cheek call the sick care system, and that the wonderful doctors and the wonderful pharmaceutical companies and biotech companies aren't doing incredible work. They are. And so I'm not here to necessarily suggest there's anything wrong there, but I do think that we wait far too long to intervene. And so making healthcare about making people healthy is, can there be a front door, more of the kind of Newtopia, which is about changing habits, focusing on nutrition, focusing on exercise, focusing on mental health, early enough that we may be able to keep people away from it. I think that should be the front door. That should be the starting point. And then and only then, if that fails, should the sick care system that we call healthcare system today kick in. The problem is we don't have that front door, and Newtopia is really trying to be that front door.
Great, thanks, guys. Go ahead, guys. Fire more questions. Go ahead, Alicia, and then Andre.
Hi, so how do you think the vaccine will affect your company?
I think it's going to impact our company in an important way, because it's going to hopefully get us all back to being the social human beings that we all are. We are looking very much forward to it. And so I would suggest that just because we are a virtual company, I think in some ways the COVID-19 has been a really remarkable thing for the whole planet, but it's been a remarkable thing for Newtopia, because it's been the first time in our lives that the entire planet, everyone in it, has been focused on preventing a disease in a way that's never been done before. And I think it's raised awareness. But what it's also done is it's raised awareness of most of the people around the world who have been most impacted by COVID-19, who've required advanced healthcare and a lot of health services, have been individuals with the risk factors that we're trying to prevent. And so in many ways, it's helped to raise the awareness of insurers, employers and otherwise, of the need for focusing on this at-risk population. But The other thing I think is going to happen is, and we hope the vaccine is going to arrive and move very quickly through the population, but just consider the last year. Hopefully not all of you and the students, but maybe your parents have experienced the same thing that I have, which is we've been fairly idle. We haven't been exercising that much. We've probably been eating more emotionally and gaining some weight, and we've been pretty stressed out. Now, all of those are ingredients for chronic disease risk. And unfortunately, I believe following the vaccine is going to be a tidal wave of chronic disease. Unfortunately, that's going to hit a lot of insurance populations, which is not a great thing for people, but is a really great thing for Newtopia, because we're going to be there to help to reduce that risk and help lower those costs as a result.
Great. Andre, I'll get to you in a minute because you're just outside, but does anybody else want to ask a question? Kobe, go ahead, Kobe, and Grace next.
So my question is, do you have any big regrets or things you would have done differently regarding your company?
That's a really wonderful question. Look, I think there's been a tremendous amount of trial and error, and there generally is when you're innovating something that just doesn't exist. It's taken us a long time to get to where we are, and it still feels like there's a fairly long road ahead. We've made all kinds of errors that I would call learning, and probably my regret would have been maybe learning faster and maybe getting to where we are a little bit earlier. But I have to say, we do try to fail fairly fast here, and so we're big tinkerers, big experimenters, and when we see something work, we go fast in it. But when we see something fail, we move away quickly from it. So I wouldn't say there are any tremendous regrets, other than, as Jolyon pointed out, I'd like to see the world move faster toward focusing on prevention. I think the pandemic is helping to do that, and I think Newtopia's best days and moments are very close at hand. And so I'm looking forward to that as opposed to focusing on regrets.
Great. Grace, fire away.
Okay, so do you have any tips for us about teamwork doing and management?
So I think, thank you, Grace, great question. The tips I would, I would really say is follow that curiosity and follow those passions, and whether or not you want to be the entrepreneur and start your own, believe there's an idea that needs to be done and you're the best person in the world to do it, that requires passion. And that requires, there's two things to it. There's this sense that I really need to do this, but also a belief that I'm the best person in the world to do it. And that comes just with a deep-seated feeling that you're in the right place at the right time doing what you should do. And so anything that you can do to do that and to feel that way, that would be my recommendation. And even if you're not the one to start something on your own, but maybe you join a company like mine, I'm looking for individuals who in their respective areas have that same feeling, that same passionate about something, wanting to take ownership over it, not having all the answers, and in fact being quite willing to make experiments that may fail, but just be willing to put your neck out there to try something and having a belief behind it. That's what I look for in every single member of our team here.
Fantastic. Yeah. That's exactly the things I love to hear. I know, Leopold, are you mic'd in there, or can you hear? You want to answer your question? Sometimes the mics. Leopold, are you there? If he's not, I'll ask his question for you, Leopold. Okay. Leopold has a question here in the classroom. He said, so, and I've got it up here on the screen just to show. I know we don't want to show it a lot. He said, what's your concerns about predatory pricing out there? Because we hear Amazon Health, and I guess we can flip all the way to some of the other competitors that are in there that are certainly bigger multi-billion-dollar market caps than yours currently. And then you've got the pricing of 65. Is there some predatory issues that concern you, and how are you dealing with that? That was a question from Leopold Lee.
Leopold, that's a really great question. Our business model today really came from work we did before starting to sell, which was we did a randomized control trial. We wanted to prove that Newtopia works the same way that any drug gets proved out there, except we don't have a pill, we have a technology platform. And it's on the back of that work that we were able to see the direct impact of our price savings. And so based on that work, we also wanted to make sure that our business model, what we offer to our partners, creates that win-win-win, which in the world of healthcare doesn't always happen. There's a lot of incentives that don't align, which means that sometimes what you're trying to do on one end doesn't align with what everyone's objectives look like. And we wanted to make sure that everyone was winning. And so we've designed a fairly novel model here, what you're looking at. I don't want to go through every single step because it's slightly complicated, but what it means is that we're truly partnering with the employer and insurer and the individual at risk to make sure that as each person wins, so too does the other. And so I'm not terribly concerned that our pricing is going to be impacted. We sell on value much more than we sell on the lowest price out there. But what we've guaranteed in this model is that if we do our job well and we go at risk for the outcomes that we provide, then we've proven to our partners that this is going to be self-funding for them and profitable times 2 inside of a year. And then it's self-funding and profitable times 4 at the end of the second year. And so the fact that we've effectively gone at risk and for that and said, we're willing to accept maybe not getting paid if we can't deliver it, makes us a really great partner to them. And there aren't that many companies out there willing to do that, to take that risk. And so that's what makes me feel pretty confident that we're not going to get outpriced or someone's not going to come in, even if they have billions of dollars, because we're aligning ourselves as a partner as opposed to just trying to sell something.
Great. Here's another question from Stephen Zhang. Stephen, you're there, I think, but I'll ask the question. You want to go ahead and ask the question, Stephen?
Why keep the price point as it is? Like $230 per kit, $65 per month, and $200 for success.
And I'll add one more thing Stephen had asked is what is that 5% body weight reduction equivalency, and why is it 5% and not 2 or 10?
So let me answer both of those questions. I'm going to start with the last one. So the 5% body weight reduction is actually really significant. As I was mentioning before, the work we did to prove out Newtopia was a randomized control trial. And in that, we noticed that at that range of body weight reduction, that's where we saw an improvement across all of the key risk factors. And the ones I'm talking about are things that you may be familiar with, or if as you get a little older and start to see a family doctor on a regular basis, it's things like your waist circumference or your body mass index, your blood pressure, blood glucose, triglycerides or cholesterol levels. Those are the 5 main key risk factors toward whether you're going to be healthy or at risk or develop a chronic disease. And so at that 5%, we saw an improvement on all 5 of those measures. And so the reason we set that as a performance target is because we know then that we will have a positive impact across those measures, but we also know that as we did that, we had a very positive impact across cost savings. And that's where we know we can effectively guarantee that this is going to be self-funding and profitable. So to answer the first question, why these price points? They've really been carefully calibrated to what's going to be acceptable to our partners. Over time, they could change a little bit. We are so confident in what we do that we like to play as much in the gain share, which means we want to play as much in the amount that we're saving for the insurer as possible. So over time, there could be some movement in how much is upfront versus how much we collect on success. But what you're looking at here is probably one of the most aggressive performance models in the market today, effectively making us that partner and not just selling something at a fixed price.
Very good. Thanks, Jeff. And for the guests that have got their hands up, we are going to get to your questions in a minute here, just a couple more students. Lucas, do you want to go? And then I'll get to you, Grace. Lucas, fire away.
Hi.
Oh, I think, okay, Grace, Lucas, you go first, and then Grace.
Oh, right. So why does the success fee cost as much as the kit, almost as much as like the kit itself?
Yeah, no, it's a really great question. And again, designed a little bit on purpose. And so it's where we're placing the emphasis on where we make money and where the greatest margin lies. So the kit itself at that approximately $230 is largely just the cost of those elements to us that we pass along to the employer or insurer who's paying for it. Effectively, at that point, we really just want those pieces to be in the hands of our participant. We make some money there, but that's not where Newtopia wants to make its money. The reason the success fee is as high as it is, and it's our highest margin item, because it aligns all of us. It aligns every member of the Newtopia team, and it aligns us to the interests of our participants and our clients. That what we want to do is we want to meet people at risk and get them onto Newtopia. That's where the first part comes in. We want to keep working with them each and every month. And if we do, that means that we can charge for them, and it means that the insurer or employer will pay for them, which is great. But we want to make sure that that engagement equals the improvement in their health. All those measures I talked about, waist circumference, blood pressure, blood glucose, triglycerides, cholesterol, plus improving mental health, improving stress resilience, improving total performance. If we do all of that, then our highest margin should be on those outcomes. And at that point, we know from our trial and our published study that that's where the biggest win is for the insurer and for the individual. So we put our biggest win there as well.
Excellent. I'm going to get to you, Grace, next, but Rita, have you got a question there? You've had your hand up for a bit. Rita, yeah. Go ahead, Rita.
Yeah, I strongly agree with your idea. But the thing is that you mentioned that you have worked with many insurance companies. But how do you work with them? Because I have like insurance company. It's called Great West Life. But how does it work? Because I have never heard about Newtopia.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I think it speaks a little bit to the fact that we're still really working with the most innovative companies in the world. And right now we're exclusively focused on the United States market. So we actually, despite being Canadian born, and I'm a Canadian, very proud. A lot of our team are. We also have a large U.S. component to our team. Thus far, we're focusing on the United States really because the environment there is perfect for the kind of innovation that we offer. Because the United States doesn't have a central insurance company, one government payer, and that many employers who have a large enough number of employees are the insurance company for that group of individuals. It means that they bear all the risk, and it means that they have the greatest incentive and interest in making sure that they can keep their people healthier. And so we found that it's the sort of the innovative groups there that have started to take on to Newtopia soonest, and that's who we're working with. Those are the companies that I mentioned earlier. But it's just the beginning. Like any technology that gets adopted, think of your favorite technology. There are groups that go first. They're the innovators, and then there are the early adopters, and then you start to move over to the mass market and the laggards. And so we're still early on in the innovator early adopters in the United States. We believe that because of the pandemic that's going to make this go a lot faster. But eventually, we think there will be opportunities to move to Canada and to other markets around the world, which may not have the exact same dynamics, but where you have a government payer. We believe that they're all going to have to realize at time that the way they're focusing on sick care isn't sustainable. Unless they focus on the at-risk population, their healthcare models will blow up. You can't fund it this way. It's just holding on right now. And so as that happens, I think in Canada, the Great West Life example that you mentioned, or anywhere else around the world, those insurers will start to pick up on this, but it's going to take a little bit more time. And we're just working our way through, sort of one step at a time with the best customers, and then move on to the other next best customers. And so hopefully you'll see Newtopia offered by your insurance company sometime soon.
Great. Grace, you want to fire a question? And then we'll get to Danny.
Sure. So like, as all of us know that like Newtopia is a great big company about healthcare, but like I think behind healthcare, technologies are really important too. So can you like talk about like the future about technologies?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I would say Newtopia is a great big technology company, but we really we're really focused on the technology. If it works really well, should almost be in the background, right? It should just be seamless. And what we're really focusing the most on is how do we use technology to build that best connection between people and sort of smart digital online services. But we don't want it to be so obvious. And so really what we spend our time doing is just figuring out how do we meet each person at risk where they are? How do we become a student of them? And then as we learn about them, how do we design experiences online that will be meaningful to them? The right human relationship, the right technology relationship, and that technology relationship could be the right kind of messages coming at the right time. It could be the right kind of support coming from, praise, or it could be the right kind of games, or it could be the right kind of social community alongside of it. And so we spend a lot of time on how do we build that relationship, how do we build trust, and then over time, how do we have more and more technology, always with the right human component there. And so I think the key to this business is going to be getting both of those right. And in fact, I think it's the companies that really focus not on only technology or only human, but really focus on bringing the two together in a healthcare world. Those are going to be the ones that do the best and most meaningful work.
Great. Inder, are you on the call right now? I know you were there earlier. I don't know if he's lost or not. He had a good question. He sent it in here. I will. Inder, do you want to fire your question? You're half on the screen. Oh, I have to let him in here as a guest. Okay, Inder. Inder, okay, go ahead, Inder.
Yeah. Okay. What specific cost-benefit analysis do you do to convince organizations to subscribe to your platform? I wanted to know specifically what key metrics do you measure?
Yeah, great question, Inder. I mean, so the cost-benefit analysis that we do, again, was largely developed through the clinical research that we did. So I just go back to, we spent 3 years in that randomized control trial, and there we were able to demonstrate. We work with a very large insurance company in the United States called Aetna, and they were able, through our work, to evaluate the impact that we had across a large group of individuals, both on the clinical risk reduction. So we're looking at our impact across those 5 risks that I referred to, and then what does that mean from a cost savings perspective for them? So if we impact those risk factors, how much would we save per individual? And then you can take the size of the insurer and apply that cost savings across all those individuals. And so then our business model is really just tied to making sure that it fits within there. And that's what we're ultimately delivering in terms of the key measures. So what did we do? What did we do to the key risks? How did it change the utilization of individuals of healthcare expenses? And then ultimately, how does it lower their cost? Those are the three main measures that we're demonstrating and looking to I guess, to drive improvement in.
Jeff, we got 5 questions with 4 minutes left to go, so let's fire them out here. Danny, you want to go next?
Hello. Thank you,
Yeah,
James.
go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you. It's a simple question, I think. Yeah, I'm very curious because prevention in health is the most difficult, except vaccine. Yeah. The lifestyle change is relatively difficult, right? I want to know, how do you really change, like for example, someone want to lose weight, how to change their behavior?
Yeah, it's a funny thing, this perspective that habits don't change and people don't change. And I would just point to, look at how we've all changed this year. Now, granted, it's probably not for the reasons that we want to, but it's pretty remarkable the changes that we've all made in our lives. Today, sitting here talking to you like this, because many of us can't go outside, there are lockdowns, I think change is a misconception that there's no possibility of doing it. And so we believe that it happens one by one, right? It takes, again, becoming a student of each individual, really learning about them and what's motivational to them, what's meaningful to them, and then designing an experience for that individual. But it means that it's one by one. And I call it one size fits one. It cannot possibly be done with the same rules for everybody. But ultimately, the answer to your question would be different for you than for every single person on this call. And it's understanding why, and that's where we take the time to do it, that I think the magic in Newtopia lies, because it's really recognizing that to change people's behavior, you've really got to understand people, you've got to meet them where they are, and then spend the time helping to build their confidence, helping to change their habits slowly, not big changes, one by one. And then it actually becomes the person who becomes the engine of their own growth. They are the ones to move this along the fastest because now they have confidence in themselves. And I think if we did that more across not just healthcare, but across all things, I think this idea that people can't change would turn around pretty quickly.
I know we've only got 2 minutes left, but I've got 4 more questions here. So you know what? We're going to go fast and steal you for a second here. Kevin Liu, do you want to ask your question?
Okay, thanks. Well, my question is, like right now, Newtopia, the stock price is only 82 cents. Do you have any strategy for the long term and short term to raise the price of the stock?
I love that question.
All about market cap, Jeff. That's all my kids care about.
The short answer to the question is, we certainly hope so, and we realize we're really just at the beginning. The company, thanks to Jolyon Burton, has been public for less about 7 months. We're largely introducing ourselves out to investors who've never seen anything like Newtopia, certainly in Canada. And I think that as we continue to just demonstrate great outcomes and more new clients and more new employers and insurers, I think that that's going to take care of itself. And we do believe that we've got some amazing partners we're working on and some great opportunities to expand within them. And again, just as we continue to execute, and I think as the world starts moving away from sick care toward more of a focus on keeping healthy people healthy, we'll see not only Newtopia expand, but so too the impact on the stock price and the value, which ultimately is very important to me and very important to our shareholders.
Ethan Liu, go ahead, fire away quickly. Ethan? Okay, Jiang, do you want to ask your question?
Oh, yeah, thank you. So I noted that the Newtopia monthly engagements per quarter. So each year since 2018 we almost have the bell curve shape. So I wonder why there's a little peak, like specifically in quarters, the second quarter and third quarter. So do you think there's any like factors that cause this difference between different quarters of engagements?
Yeah, no, real insightful question. We tend, because we've been working with employers since our commercialization in 2016, what we typically see is that employers like JP Morgan or CVS or Accenture will tend to roll out or reintroduce Newtopia early in the year. So generally Q1, January, February, March, sometimes in Q2, we'll see those marketing efforts take place. And so what happens is we get a burst of incoming new participants then, and then sometimes that marketing slows down, and then it may pick up toward the end of the year again. And so some of it's just the cycle of when marketing takes place, because we're very much tied to what we're trying to do in the marketing is we're trying not to just offer Newtopia at any time. What we're trying to do is, as employees are at risk, learn that they're at risk for having a heart attack or a stroke or diabetes and are worried about it, that's when we want to communicate with them. And that typically happens earlier in the year than it does toward the end. And so I think that explains some of that cycling that you're referring to from the bar graph in our investor presentation.
Two more quick questions and that's it. Howard Z, you want to grab?
Yeah, so my question is, what do you do about competition?
Yeah, what do we do about competition? We welcome it. Look, at the end of the day, excuse me, Newtopia alone is not going to be able to make healthcare about keeping healthy people healthy, nor is Newtopia going to be able to take care of the 50 to 60% of the global population at risk. And so we welcome it. And because I think what it does is it serves as an indication that there's more and more focus here, and more companies are starting to take this seriously. That being said, we also innovate constantly. And so we're constantly trying to disrupt ourselves and challenge ourselves to be better so that we can stay ahead of where everyone else is. And again, in the world today, there is no Newtopia. No one's doing it better than us. No one has got better technology than us, and no one's delivering better outcomes than us. And we've been that way for nearly 12 years. And so while I welcome it, we're always going to look to stay ahead of it.
I'll add to that. Great answer on that one, Jeff, because what I think people are starting to understand now is that data is a very important value for every company. And what Jeff just said about 10 years worth of data collection, they've got an inventory database now that far outweighs some of the companies that are 2, 3, 4. In fact, I think one just got taken home for $8 billion. And I think that value will start to come out as they show this to companies that they're trying to get onto their system that a lot of these other startups don't have. And therefore, you'll get a reevaluation of that market capitalization here going forward. And the competitors themselves will start to wake up and say, we're starting to lose business because we need to go and look at Newtopia. And Jeff, you didn't hear this, but there's always that potential for a takeover in this arena as well, when people want to get somewhere faster and they have more money to spend with that extra market cap. So one final question. Angela, you had a question. Are you still there?
Oh, yes. Hello. Thank you. So you said that you studied Bachelor of Arts in university. How did you learn about entrepreneurship and gain relevant technical knowledge and experience to start this healthcare-related business, since these are things that you didn't learn from your major in university?
Good way to end that. Great question.
A really fantastic question. And I cannot credit anything from school on that. And again, nothing wrong with my education. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't have done it differently. And I think the combination of my general arts degree gave me the time to think broadly. I think the combination of my law degree and business degree gave me the chance to learn how to be a problem solver and to understand the way the business world works. But it was actually the problem I saw first insight is through my dad, and then just a curiosity that I had and a question about, well, if I think this is backward and it needs to be fixed, why not me? And it was really that question, why not me, that I still ask myself every day. It's been 20 years of asking it. It's been 4 startups. But it's really just that I'm curious, this doesn't make sense, I feel I'm the best person to do it. That didn't come from school, that's got to come from inside.
You know what, Jeff? I'll tell you something. We've had some great guests on here from Mr. Balboni from Appelli, sorry, and Mr. Marchand from Medicina, and Mr. Gezi from Control Energy, which is the COVID detection system. And they've always had one great line, and Mr. Balboni, the kids know, or the students know, is knocking down the tackles. You know, why not me? I think is after everything I've heard, and you said a lot of stuff, that's a great you know, addition to our library of vocabulary for the school to go forward with to teach the students you know, how to think and how to think about what's important out there. So so I want to thank Jolyon, I say Jolyon, but Mr. Burton and Jeff, Mr. Ruby, for taking the time. It is Saturday afternoon from 2 to 3, and lots of people are out there. Well, I guess they're not out there doing a lot now, but there's a lot of things that people can be doing, like running companies and doing corporate finance deals that take up an enormous amount of time. So I can't say enough about getting on here and taking your time to answer some of the questions. You can tell by the voice levels of everybody. You're talking grade 7 to grade 12, and they're so much farther ahead now than we were in grade 7 and 8. I can't even remember understanding any of this stuff, and the questions that they've asked today, including a couple that I asked, were completely all from them. Guys, I mean, you've given them a huge amount of information here that we have to chew on over the next months in the school, and I can't thank you enough. So without much more time taken, I just want to say thank you from Shelley Zhang for setting this all up. She did all the marketing, gets almost 100 people on here, plus extensions. We've got a lot of investors that are on here. I think from my side, I just take the liability off and say that we are invested in Newtopia to a large degree, and we back everything that you're doing, Jeff. And we're looking forward to seeing this company grow here, particularly in the U.S. right now, because that's where the big market is, and then coming up here and helping our system as well going forward. We certainly need it. So, and I'll add this: without my mom actually suffered from abdominal cancer as well, Jeff. And my mom received. She was diagnosed at 28, and it took 3 years of people telling her that she was going through, you know, after kids and all this kind of stuff. And finally, Dr. Chang, a doctor who ended up becoming head of Cancer Society at some point, diagnosed her and sent her to a gentleman named Dr. Oh, geez, he was the first person to put the bowels back together again and not have a scope out the side. And he actually died of tongue cancer just recently, but he was one of the famous physicians here in Canada. And she would have died at 29, and we were being shopped around to other families to take care of us. That's how serious these things can affect families. So she got over it at 29. She got it again at 52 and got over it, and then eventually died of it at 74. And to do the DNA tasking, and we've done a poll in our class of all the students, and this is a younger generation, and almost all of them, I will say 80%, have said they have no problem giving their data back to an employer for health reasons, as long as it's kept within our 5 rules of liability that can't be expressed out. I think a lot of people in our generation said, nobody's touching me on the health side. I'm all for it because I've experienced it, and you know, I'm fortunate that I've gotten my dad's side of the family. I haven't DNA tested that, but I've done all the scopes and had nothing, whereas my sister's done the scopes and had the same types of features as my mom had. So, you know, we need that DNA testing so it helps be preventative, that we go get scopes and we go get the things done that are so preventative, especially on bowel cancer, which is fully stoppable. So what you're doing is an amazing job, and I'm excited to see Newtopia in the next 5 to 10 years.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, Jolyon. Again, as always, a pleasure. And everybody, we will we'll meet again. And Shelley, do you want to say some closing remarks? Shelley?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Jeff Ruby, and thank you, Mr. Burton. So the CEO talk is part of our young entrepreneur class, and our goal here is to broaden our kids' vision and to make their knowledge, to make sense of what they have been learning, what they're learning in school. And we want to help them to start thinking ahead of time. Why are they learning this? Where do they want to be? And we are fortunate enough to have Mr. James Moon to be the instructor of this course. And with his background, we're even more fortunate to have people like you, like Mr. Burton, and like other CEOs to give back to the community. It's like giving light to the next generation, and for the students to make sense of what they are learning. So I'm very, very grateful, and thank you so much on behalf of Focus Learning and I Made It. Thank you for your time. And also I'd like to thank all the parents, all the students to spend your time here, to be ready, to be enlightened, and to learn new things. It's great. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Great weekend. Okay, bye-bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
So much,
Thank you. Bye. Have a nice weekend.
You
Bye-bye.
too.